All righty, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We've run into a little bit of technical difficulties as God has interfered and almost knocked Chris out of his apartment there. What the heck was going on? Like literally like 2 minutes ago.
Water tower got hit, and these guys heard it through the microphone.
It was extremely loud. We thought you were getting
Wow.
it was like in your room, like right there.
I wish we recorded it that way I could go back and watch it and hear how loud it was.
That would have been amazing. That would have been amazing.
Yes, it would have.
Holy cow. All righty. Well, thank you guys. We're still waiting on Higher Ground Gaming, so we're just going to BS for a few minutes and just so as we're waiting on him to join up, Chris, PhoenixKnight, have you watched my 100 down to 51 games? What did you think of them?
I was kind of in and out of the list, mostly with other things going on, but I managed to watch most of it.
Okay.
Yep, I got to watch yours and Eric's because I wanted to be able to keep track of the games you guys had on your list. So that way, if we had any crossover, I thought it would be cool to point it out, But yes, I did watch yours and I did watch Higher Ground Gaming's. And looking forward to finding out what PhoenixKnights is and have a good old time.
I think it's interesting, like when you're going through your list and you can see there's like a theme. Like I have a lot of fantasy games where you're running multiple characters with each having their own special powers. Higher Ground Gaming is all about like half of his list is like worker placement. Did you find a theme in when you were creating your list of your top 50?
I am going to look because it really didn't occur to me.
Here we go. Here he comes.
There he is.
There he is. How you doing, buddy? We're already live, just so you know. And we're just BSing for a minute just to wait for you to join up. I asked them, I said, I noticed, and you can comment as well, like watching your list and then watching my list, I noticed that like my theme is all about lots of different characters, lots of different special powers, lots of different, running different characters that do different things. You kind of focus in on worker placement.
Worker placement and unique mechanisms.
Yeah. So I was asking Lower Slower and Phoenix if they had noticed any trend with their lists.
Not really. I'm kind of all over the place. I've got some small, have fun, quick games. I've got some big, sprawling megalopolis games. I've got I've got my first Roll and Write, my first verb that I've ever had on the list. It kind of goes all over the place. Sports, war, board gaming. Of course, more board gaming on this one, but it kind of goes all over the place.
I'm kind of much the same way. My list was kind of all over the place, but I suspect with more experienced eyes than mine on it, there may be themes that I haven't picked out of it.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see what happens. How you doing tonight? We didn't get a chance to say hi. How you doing?
I'm doing well, except for the Bruins. We won't talk about that.
It's not over yet.
That's true.
So the way I thought we would do this is we would go around in a circle so we can kind of keep organized because obviously, with 4 of us doing it, 10 games apiece, it doesn't sound like a lot. This could end up being 5 hours if we don't keep things focused, right? So I think what we'll do is we'll start off. I will start. I will talk about, my game, blah, blah, blah. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over, show it on Board Game Geek, blah, blah, blah. And then we'll come back and then we'll go around in a circle and we'll go to Chris and he'll talk about his number 50. And then as he's talking about his number 50, I'm going to type it in the search at Board Game Geek and then I can pop it up on the list. And we'll just do that as we go around. Unless anyone has any other better suggestions.
No, that works.
It sounds fine to me.
Particularly, that works for me.
All right. And we'll see. This is an experiment because we haven't obviously done this. We'd like your guys' feedback and next week, hopefully, if there's some good suggestions, we will, take them into consideration for next week. So if there's something you see, that could help us out, that would be awesome to let us know in the comments section down below. We got Mad Nerd Workshop here. Great guy. And Edward, how you guys doing? Hope everyone's doing tonight. All right. So my number 50 here. Let me bring it up here. Right. I almost forgot what it was. This is a game I just got done talking about this. Actually, it's a game with lots of different characters that have lots of different cards, and they do lots of different special powers. That, of course, is as soon as Board Game Geek decides to do something, there it goes. It's going to be called Darkest Night 2nd Edition. This is a game from 2018. It's all about running several different characters. With all of the characters have their own special powers. They have their own cards, their own deck of cards, and they run around and they're trying to prevent the necromancer from taking over the world. And it's a fantasy setting, and it's basically you can solo this, but you just got to run all 4 characters because you're always playing 4 characters against the necromancer. And there's huge stack of cards for each when you're drawing a threat that the game works against you, for artifacts, for encounters, huge. And you'll never see every of these cards. And the 2nd edition, I think, comes with like 27 different characters in the box. Of course, the downside to this is it's hard to find this game, but if you can get it, I think it's going to be a great one for you to pick up. That is my number 50, Darkest Night 2nd Edition.
All right, my number 50, I'm going to make it an honorable mention thing pretty quick, because one game that I chose for my number 50 I don't own yet, and 2 others I got after I made this list and have played them, and all 3 games are going to be higher on this list at a later point. So I have 3 honorable mentions for my number 50. The first is Tokaido by Antoine Boza, a game about the spiritual journey down the East Road from Edo to Kyoto. Along the way, you can make paintings, take a dip in hot springs, make friends, visit shops, make donations in temples, and eat wonderful meals at various inns that dot the East Road of Japan, also known as Tokaido. The second one is Ghost Stories, also by Antoine Boza. Taoist monks are looking to fend off ghosts that lead the way for the reincarnation of Wu Feng, hoping to exorcise him back into the 9 hells. And my third is Mr. President, the American Presidency 2001 to 2020 by Gene Billingsley and GMT Games, where you take on the role as the commander-in-chief and face threats both at home and abroad, square off against Congress, face foreign insurgencies, and do all the dirty work while trying to keep your public approval rating up, as well as the opinions of your allies. All 3 of these games, Tokaido, I learned about it from Will Wheaton on Geek and Sundry's Tabletop, as I did a lot of the games that are going to be on this list. It was an early influence. Ghost Stories, I really am enjoying digging into that, and I can hardly wait for Mr. President to show up. So those 3 are my honorable mentions at number 50, Tokaido, Ghost Stories, and Mr. President.
All right. Great job. I was going to bring them all up because,
no, don't worry about it.
I'll do that for the next one. Good job there, lower board gamer. All right, Phoenix, what do you got, buddy?
All right, my number 50 is actually one of the 2 games in this section of the list that I don't own. It's a space exploration game by Orange Nebula Games. It's called Unsettled. So I guess the one theme that I might pick out of here is there are quite a few space games on this list, especially when you start getting higher up. The main reason it's ranked so low, and I do like the narrative focus in it as well, but the main reason it's so low, there are 2 main reasons that it's so low on my list. One is that it seems like it's a bit too complicated for my tastes. And 2, which is a reason I'll probably never own this game, it is very much a table hog. And I could see this one very easily falling off my list, especially as I sink my teeth into some of the other stuff on this list.
Awesome. Wow, yeah, it's a newer game too, 2021. Awesome. All right. And Higher Ground Gaming, what is your number 50?
My number 50 is a family classic. called Trouble. No, it's not it.
You're in trouble.
Now, number 50 is, of course, a worker placement game, work replacement. I call it every game work replacement because they do replace work.
True.
It's called Santa Maria. So I'll give you a second there. All right, here. Oh, let me face it there. It is a colonization game. It's got various tracks you go up. You have to build a tableau of well, you have like columns. If I don't know if you're familiar with the with math and the Cartesian coordinate system. Basically, it's can you bring up? I think you might be able to find a thing in the player board of the actual board, player board or something. Yeah, okay, that's a good example right there. It's a little far away, but basically what you're going to be doing is you're going to be drafting dice. So there's dice drafting in it, and you're going to be completing whatever die, the row or column, whatever the die suggests. So basically, it's going to say going up on the religion track or going up on the trade track or getting resources track. So it's a resource management game. It's a very tight game. Your happiness points are basically your victory points in the game. It's but you're going to be drafting different on your player board, and sometimes they don't have good pictures of them. Let me just show you. Actually, I have one right here, really quick. Yeah, this is a good example here. Yeah, so this is an example of the different tracks and everything you can go up on. There's a religion track. There's a you'll be drafting the die, and you're going to be going the colonization track, and you're going to be completing contracts. As you can see, there's 4 contracts here on the left. There's shipping, there's colonization, just different types of tracks and everything. Typical work replacement game, but what's cool is that the actions that you take are going to depend upon what die you draft, and there's ways to mitigate the dice. But the more you fill out your player board, the more actions you're going to have. So it's a balance between, do I do a contract or do I do something else? It takes place over 4 rounds, takes about roughly, I think it said 60 to 90 minutes, I think. So it's a fairly quick game, but that's my number 50. Santa Maria.
Nice. Number 50. So these are the ones that just barely snuck in, right?
Yep.
These are the ones that if we move something down, these are the ones that are probably going to get booted, right? So it's going to be interesting to see. I think while this year is going to be super fun to do, I think next year is going to be twice as good because you're going to all the new games and as you experience and play more things, you're going to be trying to move things on your list, which means you're going to lose things. And then
I kind of look at it like another way too, is it made it into the top 50. It's a.
That's true.
True. These games are by no means bad games. Just because it's number 50 just means that it's the 50th out of the games that we really love the most.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And some of my list is
actually definitely.
I was going to say some of my list is kind of by default almost because my sample size of some of these games is just so small because I only got into the hobby in the last few years.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. All right, my number 49. I do not own this game. I used to own it when I moved down to Florida. As you guys know, I sold everything. I was always thinking I was gonna get back into this. This is a World War II tactical level war game, but it's not your typical game. This is a game called Tide of Iron by Fantasy Flight. It came out in 2007. And the kind of the interesting mechanic that came out with this one is all your little plastic soldiers and everything came on these little bases. So you can kind of make your little squads by depending on what guys you put into the different holes on the bases. So your machine gun squads took up 2 little spaces. Your riflemen take up 1 little space. And then, of course, as you're moving them around and you take damage, then you got to remove one of your guys out of the little PC pod. And it is. There's a lot of really cool things that I like with this. There's some card play which you can get. It does come with some tanks. I don't think they comes with those tanks, but I think it came with just generic kind of tanks. but this is a great little World War II tactical level. There's quite a few expansions for the game out there, and it's kind of a good intro to wargaming kind of game because it teaches you the basics with hex encounters and kind of spins off a little bit with making it fun with having cards to play that'll let you do special things and kind of making it aesthetically pleasing to the eye. And so that is my number 49, Tide of Iron.
Fantastic.
Cool.
Well, I've always been a little bit of a history buff, especially American colonial, American Revolution, and also the fledgling youth of the grand project of democracy. And my 49th game is Founding Fathers, 2008,
Heard of that one.
by Christian Leonard and Jason Matthews and Jolly Rogers Games. It has a really cool twist. You're a representative in the Constitutional Congress and attempting to draft the Constitution of a brand new nation. But the game is not about what gets passed or how accurate the Constitution is historically. It's about how influential a politician you can be. That's it. How influential a politician you can be. You try to sway delegates in debate and have influence with various factions represented in the Congress, such as those for state rights or those in favor of a strong central government. It is a card-driven worker placement game, and you place your markers where you want to do the most influence. If you can be more persuasive, you'll earn more points. It's really cool the way that it's a thematic thing for me. It really is, being constitutional, being that time frame of history. But I saw it on a shelf at a game store up in Dover in 2010 when my son was in a Yu-Gi-Oh tournament. So I went ahead and just grabbed it. I said I wanted to try to play this game. I'm really glad that I did. Founding Fathers. That's my number 49.
Cool.
Looks good. Looks good. I don't have that one, so that was good. Yeah, I'm glad. I've and I hate to interrupt, but I watched Higher Ground Gaming and him doing his videos and I actually, after watching some of his games and hearing his comments about him and stuff, actually went and researched some of them, and because I'm thinking about, that sounds like something I might want to get. So
I picked a couple up for you guys also. So
right, that's what I was thinking. This one looks like one I might need to get. All right, Phoenix, what do you got, buddy?
My number 49 was actually one of my first war games, and it was the very first one on my list this year that I played on the channel. It's a book game from Worthington Games called On to Moscow. So you take control of so in this one, you take control of the Axis forces advancing into the Soviet Union. You've got 3, or is it 4 different fronts? Looks like it is 4 fronts, actually. So here's a representation of the board. I'm going to try to get it into the camera, where you've got the map where it's not going to be the best to do it. I'm trying to look at this backwards, and it's not going well. But basically, you've got your 4 different fronts that you can advance on, an event chart that can potentially screw with you, and that gets into some problems I ended up having with this game. It's very chance-based, and I think almost a touch too much for simplicity's sake. But then there were some frustrations I had with the action points rolls, and I'll talk about that more because I'm planning to do what I call an end of list retrospective once I finish my full list, where I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of the problems I had with this game. So my number 49, On to Moscow from Worthington Games.
Book game. I've got like 3 or 4 book games now, so I think that might be a great introductory to war game as well. Number 49, Higher Ground Gaming.
All right. This is a game I've definitely poured the most money into. It's a dungeon crawler of sorts. It's dice chucking goodness.
Oh yeah.
It's a game that ID Gesture tried to paint, but it didn't work out, let's just say. It can be cooperative, mostly cooperative. It is, and I didn't have any one particular one because it's got too many of them, is Shadows of Brimstone by Flying Frog Productions.
And I had actually typed that in while you were giving
you
your
knew it.
intro. I had thought that was going to be what you were talking about. So
Now, I'm quite disappointed that it didn't get higher, but there are other games by Flying Frog that I actually like better than Shadows of Brimstone. So stay tuned for that. If you know Flying Frog games, dice chucking goodness, no worker placement.
it's weird. How do you feel about that? Not having worker placements.
He draws circles on the game board, tries to get the dice to stay in.
Yep. Now, the reason where I think it might go up higher in the future is the Solo Gamers Club is doing a series on this, and he's designing campaigns for this game to make it more cohesive, to make it more campaign driven instead of just pick an adventure and do it kind of thing. He's making towns for it. He's making like a whole system where it's going to improve the combat, I think, and everything in it too, because the combat in it after a while does get old, but it's just so much fun. Just, running through different dungeons and running through the old West, versus aliens or whatnot. It's just, I don't know. I really enjoy otherworld type stuff like that. So that is my number 49, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Shadow of Brimstone.
I got that as soon as you spent the most money on this game.
Exactly.
It's one of those games. There is, I think, literally like 120 different expansions that you can get for this game. And of course, like all good games, the more you have of it, the more stuff, the bigger, better it gets.
Sure.
My number 48. We're down to 48 already, guys.
48.
Cooking right along. Here we go. 48. Ooh, it's a new game for me. It just came out in 2022. Last year is going to be my game of the year for 2022. I don't know. We're going to see. This is a worker placement game.
What?
I thought I'd get your attention. It's a really good one. And it's got a super, and I think Higher Ground Gaming might have it on this list. It's got a super interesting rondel maneuver.
Rondels. Yep.
And this is called Terracotta Army. It is kind of I think it fits the bill for a deep Euro strategy game. It is, and it's a good game when I painted the miniatures. One of the things I didn't like, if you notice here, is some of the extra people that you can put on the board: the horse, the musician, the archer, and the soldier. All are just kind of generic gray. So I wanted to separate them, and so I actually just painted them each different colors. So that was kind of cool. But it's got this really cool rondel, which has 3 layers on it. And it rotates to the left. This one rotates to the left. The middle one rotates to the right. And when you put your worker down, you get all 3 of whatever's in your little section of the pie. And it does have the little mechanic from viticulture where you have your grande worker, where a lot of times your opponent can block you out if you try to go to that little piece of the pie. But your grande worker, and of course it's not called a grande worker, but if you have a grande worker, you can put your grande worker in that location so you can't get blocked out. And the object of this game is obviously to build the Terracotta Army. There's a lot of strategy going on where you put. It's mostly all about where you're building and what you're building in that section here. And then at the end of the game, you're going to get scoring based upon how many groups, how big your group is. Do you actually want to build where your opponent's building, and so you can be part of his group, because then you'll score points and he's going to do the same thing. And then if your groups combine together, you're going to get even bigger points. There's a lot of strategy in it. It's a fun game and highly underrated, I believe. My number 48. Is that where we're at? 48? Yes, Terracotta Army.
Alrighty. My number, I went too far down my list. There we go. My number 48 game. And this is the first of, so far, 3 crossovers in this section tonight with ID Jester.
Ooh, nice.
Yep. So this is the first. I've been getting back into some easy and more accessible war games lately. And last year, because of my local enabler, I got Corsair Leader by Dan Verson Games. It's really cool. You pick your squadron, 12 fighters. You fly missions in the Pacific campaign of World War II. You pick maps and fly missions. And it's really cool. I found myself rooting for my guys as they get promoted, and the nail biting when one or two of your guys come close to making the ultimate sacrifices and diving into the Pacific. It's a fun game. It's a bit to set up the mission. It's not a table hog, but there's a lot of setup for it. But man, it is worth it. Once you get it out on the table, you're sitting in the chair and honing in as you on a zero, or you let loose and see a crack of smoke. It's really cool. You know that you hauled the mail and you're going to live to fly again tomorrow. There you can see the board. You've got your approach zones and your combat zones, and you're going to set up opponents in there, and then you're going to fly your guys in and take on the objective and hopefully make it back to your base, to your carrier, whatever it is you flew away from. And it's really a fun game by Dan Verson Games. Corsair Leader, my number 48.
Nice, good game, good call. Phoenix, you should. I know you just got into wargaming yourself, and I know you have quite a few, but you should look at some of the Leader games as well.
I've actually got Corsair Leader on one of my BGG tabs in Chrome that I'm going to take a look into later.
Okay.
But my number 48 actually set the table for a lot of games, not quite as many as Ticket to Ride, you could argue, but it's a weird one for me. So my number 48 is actually Base Pandemic.
Yes.
The reason it's such a weird one for me is because of when I got into board gaming and when it really caught my eye. It caught my eye at the height of lockdown, and at the time, I think the theme hit a little too close to home for me. So that's a big part of the reason. I talked about this when I did Pandemic Month on the channel last month, where Pandemic is one of those series for me where I don't always look at theme on some of these games, but the Pandemic system is one where I look a bit harder at the theme than I normally would. So that's where theme can be a make or break purchase with the Pandemic system. But one of the most popular games out there. And it is an easy one to access just because you can find it pretty much anywhere, like Target, Zoomart, places like that.
Did you call it Zoomart?
Mostly because Walmart's always a total nightmare whenever I go there. So I've taken to calling it Zoomart for that reason.
Not bad.
Pandemic, an all-time classic. Yes, sir. Number
great game. I love
48. Wow.
Yep.
Okay. All right, Higher Ground Gaming.
All righty. So this is definitely one of the hardest games I've ever played, and I definitely lose a lot more than I win at it. It's a survival game where you're on an island, and there's a famous book of this character, and I have an older version. It's one of the first games I got when I was getting into the hobby, and that is Robinson Crusoe.
Yes, see, I already had it pegged again. I'm 2 for 2 on you. I am 2 on 2 for you. Yeah.
Wow, pretty good.
Yeah.
Yep. So
do you want me to show the video or the pictures?
Yeah, just show us a couple of pictures or something like that. You're basically exploring an island. It's, like I said, a brutal game. The events on it can really kick your butt. You have to craft weapons and tools and stuff in order to try to survive on the island. There's different scenarios you can play. The first one is obviously building a bonfire to try to get off the island. But yeah, those are different tiles you got to lay. You got to explore different areas. It's just brutal. I mean, as far as the wounds you take and everything, yeah, those are some of the equipment that you can. Actually, those are the events. Yeah, you can actually have Friday help you, which is a character in Robinson Crusoe. He can help you. You can get a dog that can help you. In order to unlock certain equipment and tools and stuff, you have to unlock the land area that it's involved in too, like a mountainous area or a river area. And until you do that, you can't unlock. It's a super tight game. You have to feed yourself and, provide shelter for yourself. If not, you're going to take injuries and wounds. And it is just when you think you got the game won, it just comes back and kicks your butt. So they did do an expansion to it, I think. And I think recently it came on a Kickstarter. They did an upgraded version where they have little buildings and everything like that too, but too expensive for my taste. But definitely one of the hardest games that I played. But when you do win, it's very super satisfying. So that's my number 48, Robinson Crusoe, Adventures on the Cursed Island.
That is a great game. Great solo experience.
Yes. Yeah.
Every time you play it is scenario based, I would say. And there's a ton of different scenarios. There's actually a King Kong scenario when you get one of the expansions comes with King Kong, which makes it super fun. There's also hunting down the cat convicts, where you go to you're transporting convicts and your ship land or gets stranded on this desert island, and then all the convicts escape, and you got to hunt them back down. It's a cool game, but yes, it's brutally hard.
Yeah, this game's been on my radar for a little while, and I think the most enticing thing is that everybody says that it is such a difficult game to beat, and I love games that knock me in the dirt and make me like it so much I come back for more.
Yeah, if you win the first time, then forget it.
Yeah.
You shouldn't win the first time. Well, maybe on the easy one.
Even the easy scenarios are not easy because you literally have to build. You have to start off. You have to build rope, and then you have to build a hammer from the wood that you gather. It's like
it's an engine building. Nothing. You're building your engine. Yep.
Yeah. All right, it's a great pick so far. We have going to number 47. This is a game I don't own. Don't own it. Surprise, surprise. It's a World War II tactical level war game. This is like Tide of Iron, which was just a pick or two ago, but this is on the lighter end of the spectrum. But there is a ton of scenarios. There's a ton of expansions. There's a ton of stuff, and it's part of one of my favorite systems ever, the Command and Color system. If you don't know what it is, I will share it is Memoir 44. This is another tactical level, but very introductory war game, and it's quick to play, quick to teach, quick to set up, and it does come with little minis again if you want. And there is Mediterranean expansion, and Pacific expansion, and East Front expansion. There's tons and tons of different variety. So, I mean, yes, the base game is kind of generic, but US versus German, but you can expand and buy the expansions and get quite a few things going on. You're simply moving your guys around. You're activating them with using different cards. The board is set up to left, center, and right. And your card you play might say move 2 units in the middle, and you activate those 2 units, you move them, and you fire with them. And the object is to just eliminate your opponents. And every time you eliminate one of your opponents' squads, then you earn a victory point. And the scenario is based upon how many victory points you can earn. So my number 47 is Memoir 44.
Good game. My number 47. Last September was the first World Series of Board Gaming, and they had some stuff on YouTube, but they really picked up a presence on YouTube, and I watched a lot of it. And a few of the games I really sunk my teeth into. I gotta play this game and watching plays, and Brass Birmingham was one, and there were others, but this game right here was played, and it's another crossover with ID Jester. Gaia Project.
I think it's going to be a crossover with somebody else too.
I think it is too. I really do, because I watched some of his videos learning how to play it as well. But this is by Jens Drogmuller and Helga Ostertag. And in this game, you're stretching your space wings and trying to get out there and colonize your neighboring star systems and expand even further, trying to outrace other sentient species in the galaxies. You can build mines, academies, terraform planets, increase your technology and resources, And in the end, with a little luck, you will be the greatest empire in your neck of the woods. It is a big game. It takes up a lot of space on the table, but it really is fantastic. I love the way the game works with the tech tracks and building your engine. I love engine builders. I really do. I love engine building games, and this is a fantastic example of that. It really is.
Yeah, it's a great picture of it right there, actually. That is a
Yes.
super good picture.
And it is a big table. I just got it for Christmas this last year. My mom got it for me. I've only played it a handful of times. It doesn't come to the table often, but when it does, man, it's fun. It's a really fun game. I enjoy playing it a lot.
If PhoenixKnight suggests to get together and play with him on Board Game Arena, watch out. Watch out.
Yep.
I'm telling you, he's a master.
I don't get better by playing people who are not as good as I am.
Exactly.
That's my number 47
Great
Gaia
game,
project.
great game.
My number 47, I guess the one theme I could potentially pick out of this section of the list is I think I mentioned this, but the space games. This is one I've been learning, and I see this one climbing as I learn it more. The game is Space Corp 2025 to 2300 AD from GMT Games. So you're exploring in 3 different phases. You've got I think it's the Mariners. I think it's the Mariners phase where you're exploring the immediate proximity to Earth. Then you've got the Planeteers phase where you explore out to the greater solar system out toward Pluto. And then the Starfarers phase where you explore deeper into the universe. I've only ever played through the second era. I do need to get it to the third era at some point, but this is also a bit of a table hog, so it's going to take some time to get that out as well. But my number 47, Space Corp.
Yeah, it's that is a kind of an involved game too. It took a while for us to play it. Did you find that with yourself too?
It's not too bad, but I think it's only because the solo mode plays a little bit differently.
Okay, so you were playing. Yeah, I was playing with people, and it was a learning game for us, so it did take an extra bit. Yeah. It's kind of actually neat though, in how they do things, like the different ages, age 1, age 2, and age 3. So, and each age has got its own special
quirks.
Yeah. So exactly. Its own special rules and stuff. So cool. I'm glad that game made your list. I'm glad.
Asymmetric powers is another good thing I like too in games.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, Higher Ground Gaming.
All righty. So it's another, it can be a cooperative game. Doesn't have a really built-in solo mode to it. There are a lot of expansions for this game. See if ID can keep guessing my thing. It's got zombies in it. It's dice chucking.
What's the name of that? Hang on.
It is.
Don't tell me. Hang on. I gotta remember the name of it.
I know the name of it.
I don't think.
Give it to me. Give me the name. Oh, that's not it. That was not what I was going to say.
I've played that before.
Flying Frog. Another Flying Frog game. You thought it was the Dead of Winter, right?
No, I thought it was the Zombicide. Now I
Zombicide, yeah. The reason I like this game over like Zombicide is that you have different scenarios. It's very, I don't know, to me it's very thematic. But it's got tons and tons of the characters that you pick. You get lots of choices. You're in a town. You're basically trying to defend the town from a zombie apocalypse kind of thing. It's one player can play the zombies and another player can play the heroes or whatever. And what's cool about it is that it's got a day phase and a zombie phase and a hero phase. You can play it solo. In fact, I do play it solo. And where I play the zombies, you just try to play them optimally. What would I do if I were a zombie? What would I do if I were this hero? That kind of thing. Definitely a fun game. It's got modular boards, so your boards are always changing. The expansions add even more boards. Definitely a table hog, but it's got that good Flying Frog goodness. And the reason I rated this higher than I do Shadows of Brimstone is the combat is pretty unique. You roll. The zombies typically roll like 1 or 2 die, and to beat them, you have to roll doubles and have a die that's higher than theirs, which is kind of a unique thing. It's not like you just simply, beat them with 1 die. You have to have doubles and beat them. If you just beat them having a higher die, then you fend them off is what it is. So it's got a really cool system. You can add all kinds of weapons and everything, weapons and gear, and it's got tons of cards, great production value, and that cheesiness that comes only from Flying Frog. So that is my number 47.
That's a great pick. That's absolutely a great
Night
pick.
on Earth. Yeah, 10th anniversary edition.
Awesome game. Yeah. Probably, now that you mentioned it, probably just should have made my top 100 because it is that good of a game. It is. It's a lot of fun. You can do it solo because when you're the person that's running the zombies, all he does is move the zombies on his turn and then roll for them. So, right. I mean, you can play solo without that.
Sure. You just got to play them try to play them optimally, both sides.
Right. Exactly. Great game. All right. What are we at? Holy cow. 46. All right. 46 halfway. No, not yet.
Almost.
All right.
Oh, Bruins
in there. All right. My number 46. Believe it or not, this is crazy. People are going to think I'm nuts. We
already do.
This must be my World War II tactical level section of this must be how I think about them because I have literally 3 of them in this section. This is another game, World War II. This is going to be again a series game. I'm putting all the games in this one section because they all play the exact same. It's just one specific, one's East Front and one's West Front. So I'm just going to put them all in one section. And I'm kind of going old school with this one. You guys know what it is yet? No. Old School Tactical, Volume 1, which could be Volume 2 or Volume 3, depending on if you want the East Front, the West Front, or the Pacific version. It's, it kind of goes with the theme old school, where it's taken back to like the roots of tactical level World War II. Very easy mechanics. The center of the hex tells you what that hex, what kind of terrain is in that hex. The rules are pretty simple to understand. There is a mechanic where you roll for how many action points you get, and then you spend those action points. And sometimes you can do multiple things with the unit. Sometimes you can't, depending on how many action points you get. It's got a kind of a nice look to it. It's a nice feel. Pre-rounded counters, so you don't need to counter clip. You just punch them out, put them on the table, and you're ready to go. Old School Tactical, another one of these games that I think more people like it is. While it's a war game, I think a lot of how do I want to put it? Crossover gamers would find this game and say, this is pretty good. This is pretty neat. It's not too complex. You can sit down and learn it in 20 minutes, while you're teaching somebody, and then you're ready to go and then you're ready to play it. So Old School Tactical, my number 46.
Nostalgia. Let's face it, guys, it ain't what it used to be, right?
Right.
My number 46 fits that category. Back in the heady days of 4-bit video graphics and VHS tapes and This Week in Baseball. We had this game where you would go around all of the lands and collect
Phoenix is like,
keys.
nope, I wasn't around then.
But you go around all the lands and you collect keys in order to defeat the dragon who lived in
Adventure.
Dark Tower.
Wow.
Tower.
I found this inexpensive off Fleabay a few years ago.
Nice.
In the first play of it, I crossed my 3rd frontier and then the sucker stops working. And the circuit board was horrible. But I got a buddy who knows how to clean up and solder on components and everything. And I got it and brought it out a month ago or so. and played it. I love it. It's just every time I play it, I have to relearn how to play it because I don't play it. But I love this game. The joy of realizing that you've stumbled in on 99 brigands and that number is not getting any smaller as your time and forces dwindle. This game is so good. It recently got resurrected with a new paint job, Return of the Dark Tower. But this game is just as fun for me now as it was over 40 years ago when I first played it. Take me home.
Isn't it on the NES? There's a version of it, I think, on the NES. Sounds like
I don't know.
It might not be called exactly Dark Tower, but I think it's similar to that.
Now, I know a while ago somebody had a digital tower emulator if your tower wasn't working, so you could still play the game, but the links to that are broken. So I don't know whatever became of that.
Right.
Yeah, I love this game. Dark Tower 46.
There you go.
Wow. 1981. If you can get that game to work, if you can get that fixed, you can probably sell it for probably $300 or $400.
If it's in good shape, yeah, $300 or $400 is not totally out of the realm. I was very fortunate, and I got this for $75.
There's one for $6, but I bet you it doesn't have the tower that works.
It may just be components.
$300. So yeah.
Yeah.
Edward says there's a free version on the web.
Cool.
I'm loving the new version, Return to Dark Tower. Let's see here. Nerd Workshop says, nice choice, Jester. I'm just looking at our wonderful chat to see, catch up with the guys. All right, great pick, by the way, there. Great pick.
Goody.
All right, Phoenix.
All right, my number 46 is actually the other of my intro to wargaming, and it's actually going to be part of my list this year, and it's one I'm planning on playing next month. And I'll talk about why it's ranked so much higher than the other game it's similar to, but it's Bismarck Solitaire, which is also from Worthington Games. So basically in this one, it's a book game similar to On to Moscow, where you actually take control of the Bismarck, else is there? The Prinz Eugen, and a U-boat along for sorties. Similar to On to Moscow, you've got a map where you can manage where your ships are located. You also got events up here. The reason I find some of the things are a little bit easier to swallow here than in On to Moscow is just because the ocean to me is so much a bigger place than trying to concentrate on the Soviet Union. So it's not as frustrating, I find, to not have a turn essentially lost in Bismarck Solitaire than I would in On to Moscow. But again, I'll talk more about that in my end of list retrospective when I go through that.
Yeah. Sounds great. That's a great pick. These book games. Nerd Workshop, I got them. Some of these book games too. They don't have them on Board Game Geek, so that's why I'm not posting them up for you, PhoenixKnight. Don't think I'm ignoring you. They don't have them in. I guess Board Game Geek doesn't consider the book games an actual board game. So
weird because
maybe they just haven't been entered, because I know like the Battle of Tippecanoe and a couple of others that you guys were talking about with Grant with Player's Aid month and a half ago or so that they recommended. I went ahead and found them cheap and I ordered them in, and I was able to find them. So maybe these just simply aren't listed on there.
Yeah, could be.
It's actually weird because I was able to find On to Moscow on the Geek, and I actually put my video for it up on there as well. And I just put a link to Worthington Publishing's link to Bismarck Solitaire in the YouTube chat.
There you go. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. All right, Higher Ground Gaming. What you got going on over there?
Yeah, we're at 46, right?
Yes, sir.
46.
Okay. All right. This is a game I got off a Kickstarter early on in my board gaming career, which it's going to become someday.
Amen.
It's a strategy game, fantasy, medieval, hand management, set collection, variable player powers. Have you guessed it yet, ID? Probably not.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't really narrow it down.
No, it doesn't. Centuries ago, the Kingdom of Greycastle was founded through a pact between the great guild leaders of the realm. Under this pact, only a guild can rule the realm, and only a guild leader may claim the throne. Now, with the king on his deathbed, the Council of the Wise will convene. As one of the guild leaders of Greycastle, you must prove your guild's prestige so that you can take the crown and claim your rightful place as the title, the King's Guild.
King's Guild.
It's actually on BGA. They did a implementation on that. It's a great implementation. This is a box right here. It's the only game, Matthew Austin, it's the only game he's ever done. It's a game where you're basically fulfilling quests by collecting resources, hiring specialists, and you're trying to complete basically orders for the warriors that are going on different, missions and stuff, like swords and boots or a wand or something like that. You have to collect the ingredients and basically fulfill.
I found it.
Yeah, there you go. Yep. And basically halfway through the game, the king dies and you have to make a tribute. And if you're the one that makes the highest tribute, you get the tile, the king's statue. But there's all kinds of set collection and specialists you can hire. And it's a great little game. You're one of the merchant guilds or one of the guilds, and you're trying to be the best guild in order to take over the throne, basically. But the quests, those are the quests you can complete. There is phase 1 and phase 2 quests. There's basic ingredients, and then there's magical ingredients, which you have to unlock, and you build the rooms on your tableau. And it's a really, really it's a hidden gem. Yeah, there you go. That's like a quest you got to complete. So you have 2 little statues, and basically you can if you fulfill, they say you make those magic pants there, you supply the ingredients, you put your little crest guild on there, you get 5 gold, but you're not guaranteed to get the whole card or the treasures below. Somebody else can come along and complete the other item there, the bow. If that happens, you split the cards down below, the blue and the other cards. The person who filled the first quest gets the actual cards. And if you look in the upper right there's different icons there. There's like a sword and shield and all that stuff. That's like a set collection thing, and you can build the rooms, which if you have a certain amount of those crests or whatever, you get X amount of points. But it's a fun little game for one. You can play up to 6 players in it, which is cool, and it does have a great solo mode. And the more players that play,
reasonably priced too.
It is. Yeah, it's a
that
gem.
looks like one I might even like to pick up.
Yeah, I would try it on BGA. But I think
it's on BGA. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I guarantee you'll like it though. It's actually a really popular one on BGA. But yeah, it's really a game that I didn't expect it to. I like it this much, but it gets to the table quite a bit. Not as much now that it's on BGA, but definitely a fun game now and easy to teach.
Excellent. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna take like a 2-minute break, 3 minutes. I'm gonna grab something to drink because we're halfway through. Yep. So let's go ahead and just take a quick 3-4 minute break. Yeah, everyone can get you a smoke, get a drink, go to the bathroom, whatever you need to do. We'll be right back.
Back.
All right.
Is this a movie? Yeah. On Netflix? No. Where?
Anyways, someone asked him why old people's music. It was like, dancing around, the father and mother of the bride kind of thing. Then all this that music, like at Britney's wedding, they jump up on the dance floor and they're doing the same thing with all these young people. Oh my God.
Well, looks like that's about all we needed.
Okay, I gotcha.
Who's your
God,
puppy?
look
Penny
at
just wants
that.
to say
Who's
hi.
your puppy?
This is Penny.
Hi,
Hello,
Penny.
Penny. It's your puppers. It's your puppers.
I'm sorry. Okay, I'll put you down. I think I scared her when I picked her up. All right.
Good.
All righty, we are back. We're ready to go,
Nice.
and we're going to do number 45. Countdown, figuring the countdown move. We're going to keep moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
This is a game that I really, really think is going to be awesome. I've only played it a couple times. I actually played it on Board Game Arena with some jerko, and he was trying to teach me how to play. Didn't teach me all the rules until the very end, so he could steal one piece and win by just a couple points. You know what game I'm talking about yet?
You play it with me?
Yeah, Zolkin.
Oh,
One of the
Zolkin.
teen series.
T game.
One of the teen games. Cool thing I like about this one is it's got this little mechanism where you're putting pieces out there, and you have to. You're going to be rotating as the time goes by, and as you rotate it, then your pieces move along. And the longer you leave them out there, the more powerful they get to do things. And so, but you're also like struggling to try. I need wood. I need to get it now. I need to get it, or do you wait? There's a lot of tough decisions. Really fun game. You can play it on the Board Game Arena. I got the actual board game myself, and I painted all my little pieces. I have not finished it yet. It's not for consumption yet, but it's kind of the cool. I love the team games. Unfortunately, this is like the only team game that doesn't have a solo mode, so
Right.
it kind of loses a couple points because it doesn't have a solo mode. I think it would be really hard to do the solo because of all the different, when does the AI put things on? When does he take them off?
Yeah.
Kind of
They could do like a double. You know how they put a blocker in a 2-player game like they had in our game.
Yeah.
Yeah. They could have maybe.
You could just add more blockers, but then.
Yeah, they don't really get a score though, so it's not really a true.
And it does come with these cool blue skulls too. So.
Yeah.
So you get points for that.
That's a deal breaker.
That's my number 45. Zolkin, the Mayan calendar.
You may see that. You may see that a little later on.
Oh, okay. I figured we might.
All right, my number 45. My gaming group, we like to get stupid and zany at times, and there's no better way to not take things seriously than to don the giant pantyhose of strength and take out a tax auditor or two. That's right, Munchkin. Being Dungeons and Dragons and watching Critical Role, I also have the Mighty Nine as well. It's a separate game in and of itself, and it really covers the characters of that campaign arc. But I love when we feel like being stupid. It's great. It's awesome. You build your characters as you go. You get cursed and be like school on Saturday. No class. Burn an anthill or bribe the GM with food to level up and become the greatest munchkin of them all by beating everyone else to 10 points. But for my group, it's all about the raucous laughter and the difficulty breathing that this game invariably brings to the table. I mean, it scratches the lightweight. I don't want to take anything seriously right now. Itch and does it well. It really does.
Oh, Steve Jackson, yeah.
Yep, Steve Jackson. In the names on the cards, it doesn't take itself seriously one iota. I mean, a 10-foot pole or rat on a stick gives you +1 because it's a rat on a stick. But now sometimes you just need to be stupid, and Steve Jackson provided us a way to do it. Munchkin. It's my number 45 game of all time.
Wow, nice. All right.
Well, Vasily and I don't get along very well, but that's not related to my number 45. So my number 45 is
Silly putty?
actually
Silly putty.
right. My number 45 is actually a very small game from Van Ryder Games. It's called Hostage Negotiator for anybody who thought it was going to be Final Girl. So in this game, you basically take control, hence the name of a hostage negotiator, with somebody who's taken a bunch of hostages. They have a demand that they want. I forget what all they have in here. It's actually been a while since I've got this one to the table, but the goal is generally to get the hostage taker out of basically to arrest the hostage taker or somehow take him out without getting a lot of hostages killed. But that's my number 45 game.
Yeah, that's a cool one. You have a certain amount of time you can, and each one of the cards you play will allow you to do certain things, but it's going to cost you time to try and convince them to, hey, send out a hostage and we'll send you some pizza in or whatever.
Yeah, it's one that I've always wanted to try out, but it's just never matriculated. None of the guys in the group have it. Just never had the opportunity, but I've always wanted to try that game out. It looks fun.
Yeah, I've been interested in checking out the Final Girl one too. I've watched a few episodes on some of the different combinations you can make with that game, and it looks interesting.
Right. We would have thought a rat on a stick would be worth more there, Chris. Come on.
No. Simple beginnings.
All right, Higher Ground Gaming, you're number 45.
My number 45, I don't have the physical copy with me right here. I should have brought some cards with me to show you. And if you watch my channel at all, it's probably my most played baseball game on my channel, and ID knows what that is. He's going to bring it up right now. It's a game we've talked about, the computer version, and gotten frustrated because it crashes a lot. Or it used to crash a lot.
I have a guess, but I'm not for sure which is your most popular.
What do you think?
I'm guessing Inside. Is it?
Inside
Pitch?
Good one.
I played mostly the computer version, but if you've ever played the computer version, it's just like playing the card game. You have to input, your batter rolls. Pitcher rolls, and then depending upon what you get for the pitcher rolls, you'll have to input, a batter roll. It's just, a lot of cross-referencing, some charts. The reason I like the computer version better is just because it does all the charts and everything for you. Still, though, you have to know what you're doing with it, because if you're inputting the wrong stuff, you're going to get the wrong results. But great company. Like I said, Bill Som there, he's a great guy. He's the one that does the computer translation, but Chris somebody does the other one, I think.
Chris DeWitt.
Yeah. But it's a great game. Many seasons available. Not all lately, but it's just they haven't really updated the interface that much. It's my only gripe about it, but it's not something that really needs to be updated necessarily. But I just like the way the cards input, and a lot of the checks are like a home run check. You have to go off the pitcher and the batter card. So it does take into effect the pitcher's effectiveness and how many home runs they let up as to what it's going to be. And it's a lot of D20 rolling with that, but it's to me, it's just very satisfying, and you can get a game done, and I can get a game less than an hour, like 45 minutes or so. But
on the computer version for sure.
Yeah, the computer version, obviously. I actually was going to join a league. I can't remember when it was. It was back a few years ago. We did a draft and we had everything going. I think it was 2016 set, and it was so fun doing the draft with a bunch of guys. And then all of a sudden at the end, they canceled it because a couple of guys dropped out of it. And I was like, did the whole draft and got it all done. Yeah. But it was just doing the draft was fun. Trying to get the best players and everything.
No, I love this game. It also almost made it on my list. Did not quite, probably 55 or so, but I love this game too. It's great.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we will probably see this game some other time during somebody's list, but it is it's an awesome game. Awesome game. It's actually the only game I've only done one full season replay. 162 games, boys, and that was my Bo Jackson, and that was with the online inside pitch, and because you can get a game done, in 3 games in an hour.
Yeah,
so, great game. All right, my number. Where are we at? 44. I don't own this game.
Is it
It's in my cart. It's in my cart at Noble Knight. I keep meaning to pick this up, and then other things get it in front of it. The original, and I like the original better than the second edition that came out. This is a Fantasy Flight fantasy game. It used kind of a system that we looked up just like 5 picks ago with the Memoir 44. It uses the same kind of system. This is, of course, if I click on the button, there we go. Battle Lore. It's basically fantasy creatures fighting using the command and color system, and they call it Battle Lore. And it adds magic and magic cards. That's probably the only difference that it has. And yeah, basically, again, the same thing. Your board's going to have sections left, middle, and right, and you're going to have units on the board, and you're going to play cards, and it's going to say, activate these units, or do this special ability, or do this. You're going to roll dice to see your green units kill people when they roll greens, and swords, and there's just flags. You're trying to kill the enemies, so you can get the last unit with the little flag on them. Take the flag, kick the banner, win the scenario. Very simplistic, easy, fun, tactical, sound system. And I told you guys, I love it. And there's 2 games in this group that use it. Command and Colors. This is Battle Lore, my number 44, right? Yes.
44. My number 44. It's the first of a handful of sports games on the list. After all, it's kind of how I got my start in this zany thing we call content creation. And weighing in at number 44, Stratomatic Hockey. Yep. I love this game. I'm not a guy who follows hockey at all. I really am not, unless the Olympics are around. And I've only ever played the basic version of this game, but the basic version is enough for me. I mean, I love the way that the game flows. Highs and lows, both emotions and sticks. It's got it all. It's got power plays. It's got line changes. And there's a lot more detail the greater levels that you play, advanced and super advanced, for those who really want that hockey experience. But I really do enjoy this game a lot. I first got this game about 5 years ago, and I remember rolling a tribute game for Ken Castro's mom when she died a few years back. And it's games like this that let us do little things for each other in this community that make such big differences and build even bigger and longer lasting friendships. Really enjoy this game a lot. And I need to break it out again. It's been a while since I played it. I do enjoy playing this game. I need to play another game. I really do. It's due. Strat Hockey, number 44.
Nice.
I just literally played a game like 3 or 4 nights ago on my channel. Stratomatic Hockey. I get it out every 2-3 months and play a game or 2. Yeah, it's great.
Yep.
Awesome.
All right. My number 44 is actually the other game in this section of the list that I currently don't own. It's a very simplistic comic book battler from Greater Than Games called Sentinels of the Multiverse, where you take control of I don't know if tribute or knockoff heroes is the word I want, in the Sentinel Comics universe, battling against a villain with an environment that you also have to account for. The one thing I really didn't like about this game is there's a lot of bookkeeping to it. And it also seems very fiddly, but for the size, that doesn't kind of bother me too much. So yeah, number 44, Sentinels of the Multiverse.
Nice.
Great game. Awesome.
All righty. Well, my number 44, right? Yeah.
Worker placement?
Yes. Of sorts. Let me just look at the mechanics here. It's more it's more economic, city building, farming, hand management. It's got a hexagonal grid. Wow. It's by a designer that he's either hit or miss, but when he hits, he hits. His most widely known game is Power Grid, which is not this one.
Mm-hmm.
This one takes place in an Egyptian setting. It is called Fayoum.
And yes, he does hit or miss. You're right.
Yes, very much hit or miss. It's got the ugliest board design ever, but it works. What's cool about this game is you have a set of cards, which you start with, and which allow you to do certain activities, do certain things like build a road, put a farmer down, build a city. But what's cool about it is that after you play your cards, you have to go through a phase where you have to buy them back. You get your first 3 back free, but the other ones, any deeper that they are, you start paying. And for whatever reason, they decided to go with dollars in this game.
Dollars? Okay.
I know. It makes no sense because it's Egyptian. But they went with dollars. But you have to buy back your cards at an increasing amount. In the solo game. An increasing amount in the solo game. This game does solo. But if you ever play Power Grid, there's market cards. So if you look at the 4 cards on the left there, on the left side of the screen, the 4 bottom cards are available for purchase. The top cards are not yet are the future market. So if you ever know anything about Power Grid, there's a current market and there's a future market. So you get to see what's coming up. The cards will, in the solo mode, they will disappear. Or if this is in the multiplayer game, if they're not picked, then they'll get like money on them, basically. So it's more of an incentive to buy them. It's got a lot of area control. Yeah. And the cards get increasingly more powerful. I think the deck goes to 122 or whatever it is, and it only uses even numbers. And I think the reason it does that, obviously, is to fit an expansion in there somewhere, probably in the future. But it's like I said, area control. There's alligators and stuff around.
2020, yeah, okay.
Yeah, 2020 game, fairly recent, fairly heavy. I think is it 2.51 or 3.51?
3.11.
3.11. So it's medium, I guess you would say. Not very hard, but lots and lots of strategy. Do I buy this card in the market, or because a lot of the cards, if you get that card, you're the only one that can do that particular action, like build a certain type of city. So if you buy that card and basically screw other players out of that card, you might have a power that other players don't have. It depends upon which route you go into. There's just all kinds of cool mechanisms with the cards and anything. But the coolest one is that whole, which cards do I play first in my hand, and when do I take my income phase? Because a lot of the cards you start with, you end up never getting back because they're so buried underneath your deck. So it's a decision whether or not what order do I play the cards in. Money's usually really tight, but it's a fun game. Definitely.
Yeah, worker placement game. Great.
Not really.
No, it seems like a little bit more than that, but
yeah.
All right, we're down to number 43. Yes, we are to 43, and this is a sports game. We must be in the sports section, guys.
Be in the sports
43
section.
is a wonderful game. I was actually playing it yesterday on the channel. if you guys remember. And I find this game to be very fun. In fact, I just got like that box right there came in yesterday, and it had lots of courses for this game. And I, oops, that's not it at all. There we go.
Four?
Oh, yeah.
It's Appa Golf. Yeah, who would have thought playing golf on the computer or in the board game or whatever would be interesting? Man, it is so much fun. I can't believe it. It is. It's one of these games. It definitely takes. Right, you're rolling the dice. You're finding out how well your golfer does his thing, and then you're analyzing on the little grid where the ball went, and then you're. Each golfer's rated with different stats, and then you're going to be able to use those stats to determine how well he does on certain shots and how far he can hit the ball, and if he hits it left or hits it right. And it's just a lot of fun. And here's some of the charts on. Yeah, it is very involved. It is not an easy game. You have to really enjoy that kind of mechanism where I'm rolling dice, I'm looking at charts, and I'm trying to calculate 5 yards, 10 yards, add this, subtract this. Yeah, it's a lot of math. If you're not a math guy, you might not like it. I like it. There's actually
math, yes.
Yeah, math is math. There's actually an app that I use called the Game Caddy, which is a free resource that with somebody that I hooked up with on the internet. And it takes all the math kind of out of the game for me.
Oh, no.
Yeah. It takes it all out. It'll tell me this is where the ball went. I don't need to calculate anything. I can just put it down there. So that makes the game a lot easier for me. It makes it a lot funner. And it's, playing golf. You can play however you want, skins. You can play tournament play. You can go every round, however you want to do it. And it is kind of involved, kind of deep. So I know you can play basic. There's also a more advanced, I guess, optional rules that a lot of people play with to make it more involved. And that's what I use. Appa Golf, my number 43.
I want you to kill every golfer on the course.
I had this back in the 90s. And I'll tell you what, as long as it took me to play 4 players on a course, I just decided the next time I wanted to play it to like hop in the truck and drive down to the country club and get a hand cart, and I'd be on the 6th hole. And
it is. It's a beast.
43, huh? 43. My 43. Sometimes I like to punish myself with a heavy game, kind of like Fortress Europa. I mean, struggle through stuff like that. And I must grind through for what at times seems like it might be an eternity, but GMT's Cataclysm, A Second World War by Scott Muldoon and William Turtislavich, somehow it doesn't feel like that to me. It's a grand strategy game. It's not just combat. As a matter of fact, combat, it's not relegated to the back seat, but it has a very small kind of side portion to the game. It really is a grand strategy where you are the Axis ally or communist powers, and you are trying to dig out of the Great Depression and forge alliances and put pieces in place. And of course, Germany and Japan, they're really trying to grab whatever they can, and everyone else is trying to prevent it from happening. But it's not a recreation. It's why they call it A Second World War. It can start later. It can start earlier. But it's really cool. Delving into international relationships that lead up to the conflict, trying to figure out when to pull the trigger. Too soon, you're an outcast. Too late, you run the risk of not being able to make a dent on the world scene in any impactful way. Mobilizing, diplomacy, working at home, and agreements abroad. It's a very satisfying effort every time I set it up. And I spend a week or more evenings after work resetting the old gray matter playing this game, just really diving into it. And there's a lot of game here. It takes up a lot of space. It's a lot of game. But man, it is so worth it. It's so engaging. You can't help but to forget everything else, even if only for a short time. Yeah. Nice. That is why Cataclysm: A Second World War is my number 43.
My number 43, I normally don't go for engine builders, but they've been kind of growing on me a little bit as I've been getting further and further into my board gaming career. And this is another one where the theme really does a lot of work in terms of getting me to enjoy it. My number 43 is Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition from, who the hell is it from? Looks like Stronghold Games. So Jester was talking about this one, I think, before we went live, but it just had a couple of expansions come out where your goal is to terraform Mars for human life. Now, there is also base terraforming Mars, but I like this one better because this one's a lot more solo friendly. And given the amount of gaming I do solo, it's not just a requirement for a game to have my collection that it's got to have a solo mode, but it's pretty close to it. So, yeah, it's the way I've heard it described too is Terraforming Mars meets Race for the Galaxy. I didn't think I'd like this at first, but I got it to the table a few times, and it's kind of starting to grow on me a little bit. This is one, as I dig into it, I see this one climbing in my list a little bit more.
I could see that comparison. It sounds about right. Roll for the Galaxy. Yeah, I could see that. It's a great game. I love it. Yeah.
Nice.
Great game. It's I would recommend you get the
Crisis.
Crisis. Sorry, couldn't think of the name of it. Get the Crisis expansion. It's awesome. It's awesome.
Alrighty. Getting to the end here.
We're getting there.
Yeah, a couple more to go. All right. So mine, it's not a worker placement game. It's a pick up and deliver game with contracts. It has a very cool follow action, which you can follow the person who does the main act if they would perform a certain act. It's a Uwe Rosenberg game. It's not one of his more popular games. It does have a good solo mode to it. It takes about 45 to 90 minutes. And that game is called Mercator. Mercator, yeah. So basically, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be, let's see, I'm trying to think of a good way to explain it here. Yeah, if you can bring up something on the board, yeah, that's good. Yeah. Okay, so what it is that you have contracts, which you're going to try to fulfill. Up top are your goods that you have, and the goods are very generic colored cubes. Every color cube can stand for two different types of goods, and you have to specify what good that is when you take the good. You start off with 8 bonus resources. That's like the bonus resources you start with. You have levels of contracts. You're going to be traveling around Europe and stopping at different cities, collecting cubes. And what's cool about it is when you go to a city and collect a cube, the cities around it will grow. So you'll put cubes on other cities around it. So depending upon what cities you visit, they'll grow. Yeah, right here. So you'll visit one and there's like a follow action, which somebody else can go with you. But if you pick a cube from a certain color, in a certain, like Spain likes red cubes, which I can't remember what resource it is, but the cities around it that are all connected to it will gain resources. So you'll build up cities around it. And the goal is to keep getting increasing levels of contracts. I think level 9 is the highest round. And at the end, whoever you score your top 5 contracts on your board and you collect resources, you can get end game scoring cards and stuff like that. Very simple game, but a really cool mechanism. Whereas if you decide to go somewhere, somebody else can follow you too. There's a time mechanism also in the game too. So certain cities that you visit require you to have time tokens, and you accumulate those by visiting certain cities, and spending them by visiting other cities. Usually the main cities are where you collect the time tokens in, and the other the smaller cities is where you spend the time tokens. But it's got a cool mechanism where it's like whether or not you want to follow and get an extra action, because it could be beneficial to you, but it might not be. very strategic game. And again, not like his more popular Agricola or Feast for Odin type games. A very kind of a little bit different game. You don't have to feed your people in this game, which is a common theme of a lot of his games. But a kind of like a relatively unknown game from him, but a game that I enjoyed and has a really good solo mode and simple to play.
Beautiful.
There's Mercator.
Now, you said you could follow other players on the turn.
Yes.
I love games that do that, where it minimizes your downtime and it keeps you more engaged in the game.
Exactly.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's cool. That is.
Mm-hmm.
Has a very important mechanic.
Yes.
All right, my number 42. Boys, we're winding it down. 42 for me.
Mm-hmm.
You might have heard of some of these games. They start with the letter T. I think I've had just about every one on so far, but I think
it's not Trouble.
I think this is
Monopoly.
This is my lowest rated T game.
Trouble
in the group. I love all the T games. This one just happens to be a little bit better because it was actually, I think it was the first T game that I played. What am I talking about? Stop babbling, Jester. Just show us. All right, there we go. Tikenu, A Bliss of the Sun. This is a awesome game. And it comes with this super cool little obelisk in the middle. It's a dice drafting game. Where when you do things, you're going to take dice away from the table.
Yep.
And based upon the number on the dice and the color of the dice, you're going to get resources that you can use to do other things with. This is awesome. The solo is awesome. It plays really, really well. There's a lot of cool things you can do. And I painted my tower just like this guy did. Because the tower comes all generic, but you can see you can make the towers all fancy and cool. And the cool mechanism with this is the sun is facing a direction, and as the sun rotates, the light from the obelisk will shine down, and some of the there's 3 different areas. You can either be in the shadow, you can be in the light, or you can be in the dark. And depending as the obelisk turns, then those areas move, and the dice will move based upon the color they're in. So you can't use the dice all the time because sometimes they'll be in the dark. And so planning and trying to figure out where the dice are going to be, when and how the obelisk is going to turn, and what you're going to do on your turn. And basically, there's a lot going on this board, but it's basically 6 different locations. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 different locations. Based on the facing of the, so when you take a die, you activate that location with the die you just took. So it's a good one. I really, really like it, and it might be my lowest T game on the list. Tikenu, number 42.
Can you play it at night?
I'm sorry.
Can you play it after dark?
Yes, you can.
He did. I remember when he first got it, and he streamed it, and it was a really cool game. Watching him play it, it was pretty good. He dug right into that, man. He did.
Yeah, I think I played it like 2 or 3 times when I first got it.
Yeah.
But that was like my first experience with the T game. Up to that point, I was looking for a deep strategy game that has some really good solo mode. I never really got one. And then I got this one. I was like, oh, this is really, really good.
Yep.
And then so that got me into all the other ones that we've gone through, Telium, Tikenu, and Teotihuacan, and Tabanisi, which I haven't even talked about. But yeah.
Cool. My number 42. As I mentioned earlier, I'm getting back into, I suppose you could call them entry-level war games. And 2 games go here in number 42. And they are The Hunters and The Hunted. German U-boats at war 1939 to 43, and Twilight of the U-boats from 43 to 45, both by Gregory Smith and Consim Press. These games are great. They are. I live close to Fort Miles in Lewis, Delaware, down by the beaches. And it was an old coastal artillery base where U-858 surrendered to Allied forces of the U.S. Army 261st Coastal Artillery Battalion. It's neat to create and follow this boat. You can create that boat, you know, what type of boat it was, and other boats through their missions. And it's frustrating as heck when you keep getting detected and somehow find a way out of combat and limping home, having lost half your crew and looking at a 4-month refit before you can go out again. But yeah, playing these games feels like you're holding your breath while surface crews are trying to ascertain your location. And yes, I have held my breath on more than one occasion playing this game, but they're fantastic. I love them. The Hunters and the Hunted. 42.
I'll tell you what, I'm a little surprised. I would have thought they would have been lower on your list. I didn't realize they would be. I mean, 43 is still, or 42 is still great. It's just,
yeah, I enjoy those games a lot. I mean,
man, I
for
thought they
the
would have
longest time, I'd always been
20.
I'd always been fascinated with submarine warfare. And when I'm sure you guys were talking about or something, you enablers, the whole bunch of you there on the war room. I was like, I got to get this game and try it. And it was fantastic. As a matter of fact, was it Greg Amos that you put me in contact with to get the 100? I think it was Greg Amos that I got the 100 from. Yeah. Yep. Great games.
And I convinced PhoenixKnight over there to get it too. And as you were giving your little description, I could see him shaking his head like, yep, I've been there.
Yep.
I've been there on the channel too, because I'm running that as background content on the channel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I believe this game will see it again, I believe.
We might.
No comment. Anyway, my number 42 is a handcrafter from Stonemaier Games. Admittedly, I haven't done much with this universe, but this one's mostly on here because of the mechanics of the game, and I really enjoy how it plays. The solo mode is pretty smooth. The game is Red Rising. Like I said, I've not done much with the universe itself, but I do like the mechanics on this one. So your goal, you have several goals where you're trying to gain as much influence with the Institute as you can, advancing on a fleet track and accumulating as much helium. I believe the end game conditions are one player has 2 or all 3 are met between all of the players. Then you total up the cards in your hand and the highest score wins.
And it does come with this neat tray to hold all your little gems in.
Yeah. No, what this is based on a novelization IP, if I recall correctly. I think.
Yes.
And I had heard people say you don't have to be familiar with it to enjoy the game. I've heard people say that. If you do, it's deeper for you, but that it's a good game on its own. Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I haven't done really much with the universe to speak of. I've considered getting into the audiobooks, but I've never bothered with it just because there's so much other stuff I've got going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, without knowing and without reading the books and hearing, like AJ, we have no idea who that is, but I guess once you read the books, you would. We don't, though.
All right. Okay, so number 42 is a game by my favorite designer, Stefan Feld. It's a game that came out in 2018. Build villas and lands to produce gold, bread, and goods in ancient Rome. It's the name of the game actually means seize the day. And the game is ranked 363rd overall. And it's called Carpe Diem. And it's a tile drafting game in which you're going to be building your own city of Rome, pretty much. And you're going to be completing buildings on your player board by drafting different tiles. And when you do that, you'll gain resources. You may have end game goals in which you need to build a certain amount of buildings. Your player board is modular, so it'll change from game to game. And the goals, that's your player board, which you're building with different rooms in there.
Okay.
And on the outside edges, those are like if you have a building that goes through that type of building, like a brick building that goes through those things, you'll score extra victory points there. If you cover up different icons in your town area, that will advance you on a like a player order track, which in this game going first is huge.
Different.
It does have a really cool at the end of each round, there'll be a scoring. There's 4 different rounds in the game. There's a scoring at the end of each of the rounds, and if you go first, see if you can bring it up. You had it. It's on. It's here. It's one of the first pictures I think you showed. But what's cool about it is, let's see. Yeah, I think it was right. Right, the second one right there.
This one?
That right there. Yeah. This right here. What's cool about this is that you're going to score 2 cards every round. And where the discs go, those are the cards you're going to score. So you're going to get a combination of cards. So part of your reasoning is you're going to be blocking other players. Like you might see so basically you have to have the resource up top and you score the victory points down below. The one with the 4 different red things on it, that is basically you have to have 4 buildings, brick buildings out of there. Obviously you don't spend them, but you can score the cards multiple times. So if you have cards that another player, like you may not have much going on yourself, but if there's another player that can score like buku points by putting a disc in between the fish thing and the chicken and the other in the building thing, you can basically there's blocking. So there is blocking and hate drafting in it. It's not it can be devastating at different times, but it's not, you can overcome it. But what's cool about it is the strategy, and depending upon the amount of players in the game, this is probably for a 2-player game, there's going to be more cards, like the corner cards. Well, there'll be cards in the corner there too. But once a scoring between a combination of cards is scored, you can't score it again in the game. So a lot of the strategy is seeing what cards are available, trying to get ahead on the player order track so you can score first, and building your own tableau in your city by. And the up top here is the you have a worker on the cards there, and the original version is there's like kind of like a star, and you have to follow the lines like to go diagonally to the next point that has tiles in it, and you take one of those tiles. They did a reprint of it and they messed that up, and they now have it. You go to the right or go to the left. What I thought was really cool about this game and why it's elevated so high to me is that you have to trace to see where your next tile you're going to take is, and you get ahead of somebody and take their tile that they want really bad, or you really need an end cap for your building kind of thing for it to score, and somebody takes the last tile. So there's a lot of that kind of in it too. Yeah, you'll be groaning a lot in this game, but you always have to pay attention what other players are doing because, they may try to, I got to get to that tile before they do.
Take away what you need.
Yeah. And there's different ways you can break that rule. Like if you collect bread, you can break that rule where you don't have to go to the one that's diagonally across from you. You can go to the one that's adjacent to you or something like that. So it's a lot of strategy with that, and it's just fun trying to puzzle out your own little township there and collect points through it. So that's my number 42, Carpe Diem.
All right, cool. Number 41. We're almost done, boys. We're almost done. My number 41 is an all-time classic. I think everyone that's been in board gaming for several years probably have heard of this game, and you probably have played it with somebody. It is a kind of the theme of this one doesn't really do much for me, but for a lot of people it might. It's actually ranked 32 overall, so it's a very, 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 very popular game. What game in that's called Viticulture? It's basically about building wine. That's it. You're building wine, but it's a worker placement game. So I'm sure we're going to see this one again.
It's funny that most of the times when you said that, I looked at my list and I'm like, nope.
Yeah.
It's
I'd
when
be
you didn't
surprised.
say it
I'd
that
be
I.
very surprised if this is not on your list because it's ranked 32 of all best game of all time. So I'd be very surprised. Anyways, you're placing your workers out. You have to gather the resources to put the wine out. You have to age the grapes. You have to process the grapes. You have to tend your fields. There's people that will come and visit you, which will have special abilities.
Mhm.
And it has a really good AI. So it's basically a solo mode. You're playing against the AI, which will basically whatever you need to do, you'll pull the card and the AI will do it before you do, and then you won't be able to do it. So whatever you do, the AI will screw you over. But it's a great, great game and classic. If you are getting into board gaming, you're looking for just a light board game that plays great solo, but yet has a lot of deep strategy. Get Viticulture. You won't go wrong. My number 41.
Yeah, it's a great game. I got it about 3 or 4 weeks ago or so, and I really love it. I call that AI the Mama Papa Toma.
Yeah, Mama Papa Toma.
Yep. All right. Number 41. And this is a crossover, the third one with ID Jester.
Mm.
And this is another space game, but with a different flavor than Gaia Project. Space Empires 4X by Jim Crone and GMT Games, a later iteration, of course, not one of the original games. But yeah, I love it. You start out small, you expand through your home area, and then make no binding agreements with your little brother so that he can mop the stars with you. And even though you just knew that he wasn't going to do it this time, but maybe this one time, yeah, sibling rivalry at its greatest. I hate my brother. I love my brother. I hate my brother because he beats me at this game every stinking time. But no, it can take a long time to play, and it takes up a little space on the table, but it really it's a great game. As long as you don't have one empire that falls behind early and is out of the game with lots of game remaining. It happened once. But this marathon of sweet space and exploration and combat, it's great. There are rules for solo play where you're taking on the Doomsday machines, and mechanically it works very well. It gives you time to get your fleet up a little bit, but then you face 3 increasingly difficult Doomsday machines, and there are others as well. There are expansions for it. I have them, but we haven't played more than a base game because we only get it out about once a year, and we've got to relearn it every time we do. There's GMT rule books, you know how those are. But no, it's a great game. I love it. And we spent a lot of fantastic hours around the table playing it together. So that is my number 41 game of all time, Space Empires 4X.
Nice.
My number 41 game. Oh, sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I just saying great game. Sorry.
My number 41 is a game I'm just starting to get back into. I'm actually in the process of re-sleeving everything. I'd had everything for this up to a point. Then I got rid of it, and now I'm starting to slowly buy back into it. That game is Marvel Champions, the card game. So you take control of Marvel heroes, again, going up against a villain. Jester's actually featured it a lot on his channel recently. Yeah. I'm going to have to knock a hell of a lot of rust off as I go to relearn this one, but I could see this one climbing as I start to scrape some of the rust off. It's in a style of another game that probably nobody except for possibly my non-existent ex-wife will be shocked to see later on in my list.
I think you're going to really like it, Phoenix. I think you're going to really like it now.
Yeah, my brother showed some interest in this, and I got it for him a couple of weeks ago or so, and he's learning and starting to play it on his own, you know, hanging around the house whenever he's not doing anything. So I'll probably be playing it a little bit in the future myself, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think this is it's one of those games, you know, if you got a little bit of time to sink it into, it can definitely start to show you what it's made out of, if that makes sense. So
Right. Shines with experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just knowing and just just the amount of variety that is now in the game is really good. Really good.
Mm-hmm.
So great game, Phoenix. I'm glad you're getting back into it. If you need help, just let me know.
Mm-hmm. All righty. This is my highest rated game on Board Game Geek of this list so far. Well, finishing up tonight. It's another Uwe Rosenberg game. It's quite the opposite of Agricola, and it's a lot looser playing. And my friends that I know that I put in our game group generally like this one better than Agricola, but I like Agricola better because I do like that tightness. But it's a super fun game, and it's rated 8.0, rated number 43 on Board Game Geek, and it's a big, hefty game, and that is called Caverna.
I picked it. I already had it on the screen before he pulled it. Did you see that?
I can't give enough with.
I am so good at this. I'm a professional YouTuber. You can tell.
It's.
But it's this is definitely a worker placement game at its finest. The definition of this game is just more of everything. Mm-hmm. Agricola is less of everything, or try to get at least something of everything. It's just you build a cave and you build a farm, you breed animals, you try to breed as many as possible, you build different rooms, which give you bonus points. A game that begs for an insert. Yeah, like you say, it's a game that takes place over a certain amount of rounds, and the cards and actions are pretty much that open up the worker placement spots are pretty much the same. It's just the order that each round is going to come out in. And the kicker is that after so many rounds, there's going to be a harvest, which both good things can happen if you have enough food, or bad things can happen if you don't have enough food. You'll have to sacrifice some of your sheep or your cattle. It's a really fun game. It can play up to 7 players. I've never played it with 7, but it's got a great solo mode to it. Modular different boards and stuff like that, depending upon how you want to play it. But pretty much the action cards, you're going to see every action card, every time, every worker placement spot. You wish for children. Those spots go pretty fast. It's basically trying to figure out where other players are going to go, and then beating them to it, or getting there before you want to go there, because a lot of times you can get stuck in this game. But there's enough to do in this game where it's not as restricting as Agricola. Although I like that tightness of Agricola too. But it's still a great game. And my number 41 is Caverna, the Cave Farmers.
Yeah, this is another one where there's not a lot of downtime, because as you're bidding on actions, you go in the sequential order of the actions regardless of which player is there. So it reduces downtime as well. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, there you go. That is our list from 50 to 41. So question for you guys. So we got about 8 minutes before we got to wrap it up, boys. So don't talk too long. But the question of the day is, look at your list from 50 to 41. Is there any game that you think of that group that maybe you've ranked too high? It should be lower on your list. Or maybe is there any of those games that you have on there that you might go, maybe I should have put this a little bit higher because maybe I don't think it's as good as it is? Or are you happy with that list? Are you happy with your list, or would you say, nope, I think this one should be higher? Chris?
I'm just coming off the carpet on this countdown, but I'm pretty pleased with the way, reading it and thinking about it and listening to you guys and talking through games and everything, I'm pleased with the way this is shaping up so far, so I'm good with it.
All right. Phoenix?
Looking at my list, as of now, I'm happy with where everything is. 6 months from now, I can see some of these games moving around.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Higher Ground Gaming, what do you think?
I would say just because of the system that we used, the one you gave me there from the Pub Meeple, using that to compare games and then tweaking it. I did do a little shifting around and tweaking, so I pretty much am settled where they're at right now. Like I said, give me another couple weeks when I play more games. Yeah, it's going to change. There's a lot of stuff I still have in Shrink that I plan on getting opened up this week, and I can see stuff like that Outlive game and just other games replacing or shifting stuff around. But for the most part, I think they're pretty solid right now.
Good. I'm glad you are all happy with your list.
Yep.
That's great.
It's kind of like I mentioned earlier with the honorable mentions. Either I started playing them after I'd made the list, or I didn't have one of the games yet. And I'm sure they'll be higher, but no, they're good where they are right now, just being mentioned. Yeah.
Good.
So want to do a quick preview?
Quite a variety of games. None of us. We had 40 games we listed tonight, and none of them were crossed over. In the same.
In the same group. Yeah.
All right, in the same group.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be interesting to see as we start getting lower and lower and lower. Obviously, we're all different gamers. I mean, obviously, I focus on one thing. Higher Ground Gaming focuses on something a little bit different.
Yeah.
Lower board gamer, everyone's kind of different, has their own tastes and styles and likes and dislikes. So I'm not sure how many crossovers. How many so far do we have, Chris?
So far, we have 3, and I've got you down so far for another 4. I've got 3 with Higher Ground Gaming coming up and 2 with PhoenixKnight so far.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that includes my 100 to 50, the ones I did before too?
Yes, including those. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, looking forward to next week.
Absolutely.
We're talking about the next. I mean, for these games, I'm talking 15 to 41. I'm talking these are like 10 out of 10 games for me because I play a lot of different games.
Yeah.
So I've got 1,000 different games that I've played. So you might not obviously be that advanced. Would you rate these like
next 10 or 8s
9?
jumping up into 9s? These next 10, they're 8s jumping up into 9s for me, I think.
What about you, Phoenix?
Again, some of this is kind of a by default list. So
True.
if you're looking at comparing it to like a 100 to 1 list you've done, this would probably be like 80 to 60 essentially.
Okay.
What about you, Higher Ground Gaming? What do you think?
And what was it? What was the exact question? I heard part of it, but I didn't hear the whole thing.
Now I don't remember what I said.
Like where are we? Like 8s and 9s and everything.
Oh yeah. So what is your overall opinion of the games? Are we talking mostly 9s? Are we talking mostly 8s? Mostly 10s?
I'd say between an 8 and a 9.
Okay.
Maybe around 8 probably.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, that was a lot of fun. I'm glad we got to do it. I'm glad we got to share. I'm glad. Hopefully, one thing I was thinking is maybe for next week, if you have your list of 10 games, you can send it individually to me so you don't share with anybody else, and then that way I can have them pulled up on Board Game Geek, so I don't need to constantly try to pull them up. If you would do that for me, that might make things a little bit faster for all of us.
Okay, you can do that.
Then you can't.
Besides that, I think everything worked out. I'm sorry.
And you won't be able to guess my games. Well, you probably still will, but
that's true. Maybe not. I mean, I'm just trying to think of ways.
I know that's a good idea.
Flowing and everything. So, great list. You guys have got me interested in quite a few of your games, so that's awesome.
Got a couple I want to check out.
Hopefully, we've introduced a few to people that are watching, and maybe 6 months down the line or a year. And we'll look forward to doing it next week.
Yep.
So we want to thank Edward for coming out tonight. Edward, thank you. The Eagle-Eyzer, Robinson Caruso. There you go.
Thank you, everybody.
You also said Shadows of Brimstone. That was on the list tonight. E4 Airman says, great show. Thank you very much. Nerd Workshop, Wolfpack. Yeah, that's going to be a good one for sure. That might have to go on a couple of our lists next year.
Yep.
All right. Any final comments you guys want to say before we call it a night?
Go Bruins.
That's the score.
I was actually watching the game as we were filming the show, and Florida ended up winning.
Oh, don't tell me that. In overtime?
Yeah, overtime.
Here's the crime.
Game 7 in overtime. There's nothing better than a game 7. Wow. I'm going to have to go watch the highlights on that one. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. We'll see everyone. You guys just stick around for a second.
I just have one comment. I'm glad Phoenix survived his blender and his Mystic Munchies thing. I really thought it was going to blow up.
That was my first time ever using that thing. Give me
I was ready for it to blow up. Did you try like turning the knob, increasing the time? Is that how it works?
Apparently the knob is tied to the speed, I think.
Oh, okay. So
but I was able to get it to work finally. It was way more adventures than it needed to be, but
I know you still have both your arms and legs and everything and face.
Do you have all your fingers?
1, 2, 3.
Going great.
Yeah. Yes, I have everything intact. Thank you very much.
Dwayne, good to see you, my friend. Everyone, thanks for coming out. We'll see you next week. Same time, same channel. Until then, my friends, take care of yourselves, and we'll see you all down the line.
Peace.
Peace.